Communication is vital to everyday life. However, how do you communicate in a foreign land with tepid heat, filled with luscious jungles and treacherous swamps? Take a step into the shoes of Sergeant Paul Dengler, who worked in a communications center during the Vietnam War. Dengler was born in Reading, Pennsylvania on January 1st, 1949, to Edith and William Dengler. His father taught him from a young age the value of hard work, as William was a laborer. Dengler lived with his older sister Patricia, younger sibling Carolyn, who tragically died in a car accident many years later, and his brothers, who he has had a powerful bond with since a young age, Leon and Bill. Dengler enjoyed playing sports such as baseball with his brother, and he later would play baseball on the Army team.
I got word that I was going to be drafted, so a neighbor that lived close to my parents told me that my draft notice was going out in the mail, and then I went and then enlisted. By enlisting, I was given the opportunity to pick out what I wanted to do. So I decided to go into communications.
Dengler enlisted mere days before his draft notice would have arrived at his home. After saying goodbye to his family and at the time girlfriend, Dengler traveled to Fort Dix, New Jersey for basic training. Dengler completed daily exercise routines to get in shape and learned how to properly operate multiple types of firearms while at Fort Dix.
First one was probably just the daily strain that we were under because it was pretty heavy training. They had to get us in shape, even though we were young. There was a lot of exercising and learning to shoot weapons properly and things of that nature. So it was very long days. We started as soon as the sun came up, and we didn't quit until late in the day, so we were pretty exhausted at the end of the day.
Once Dengler finished basic training, he moved on to advanced training in Georgia, where he learned cryptography and coding.
The instructors, when we were in our basic training, were just really mean people at the time. That's what we thought. But you later come to understand that they were teaching you how to survive in a war that they felt we'd eventually be going into. So they toughened us up. And so even though they were kind of mean and rough on us, by today's standards especially, they were doing what they thought they had to do to help us, come back home.
After training, Dengler was assigned to go to Germany. He was one of the only soldiers in his class who did not go directly to Vietnam. Once he arrived in Germany, Dengler was stationed at the 9th Engineering Battalion in Aschaffenburg, Germany. While in Germany, Dengler became a specialist E4. Dengler later left Germany and got married, and brought his wife back to Germany with him.
It was, think of being 20 years old or thereabouts, being married in a foreign land, although Germany was much like you would expect in the United States. I did live off post when I went back and was married, and had an apartment actually that a German landlord owned. So I had to deal with him. It was very nice. It was much like being in the United States, only you had people speaking a different language. Fortunately, most Germans spoke English. It wasn't so much the other way around. Most Americans didn't speak German. While in Germany, Dengler worked as a courier, where his daily tasks revolved around picking up classified materials and documents and delivering them to different posts and units. Dengler typically went from Aschaffenburg, where he was stationed, to the Army headquarters Stuttgart. I had kind of a neat job. I actually worked in about a 12 by 12 foot room that had a big door, steel door, kind of like you see in the movies, going into a bank vault. And I and 2 or 3 other people were the only people that were allowed in that room. And that's where we kept the classified material and the equipment that I worked with. But again, although we were a little smaller than some of the other bases, we didn't have all the equipment that some of the other ones did. So I got to actually be a courier, and I had to go by train to different parts of Germany to pick up materials, classified documents, things of that nature, which was fun. I was 20 years old, and I got to ride a train and dressed in my Army fatigues and a 45 strapped on my waist, carrying a briefcase. So that was pretty cool for a 19, 20-year-old kid walking around in Germany. After serving in Germany for around 6 months, Dengler received orders to dispatch to Vietnam.
Vietnam was different than any war previously fought. Dengler worked in communication in Vietnam as well, but on a different level. Dengler started out working in a communications building where he typed out coordinates for combat and bombing missions.
It was very important that when we typed the message for the different companies to go out and go to where they were supposed to go, it was typing coordinates, so we had to be very specific and careful that we did the right thing. So there was a lot of proofreading, believe it or not, to make sure that what we were typing was accurate, that we didn't mess things up, because needless to say, you don't want to drop the bombs in the wrong area.
Continuing in Vietnam, he was constantly bombarded by bombs and enemy artillery. Soldiers like Dengler lived in a constant fear of surprise attacks. During his time in Vietnam, one of Dengler's favorite hobbies was playing volleyball with the other soldiers, even in the sweltering heat. As Paul Dengler puts it,
In Vietnam, believe it or not, our favorite pastime was playing volleyball, and we actually played that in the monsoons, and we would have mud up to our knees sometimes, and we'd still be out there playing volleyball. And even today, when somebody says to me, "Gee, it's really raining pretty hard," and I'll go, "You think?" Because to me, it's like a real light shower. After living through monsoons for about 6 months, you can't imagine what that's like, how hard it rained. And even that, then the days averaged about 95 degrees.
we soon learned how pleased Dengler would be to leave Vietnam. It was like a party in the air for the soldiers, but even in that moment, they were all scared that they could get shot down. This is what Dengler has to say about his experience.
And 21 years old, I'm boarding a plane in Vietnam to come home, and the plane's taxiing down the runway. And I don't know if you ever heard of a song, "We Got to Get Out of This Place" by the Animals. But the captain came along and played that over the PA system. We were actually on a chartered American.
This would be a memory that would last his mind forever, a sweet thought to hold on to for what is to come. He arrived home and was greeted by people protesting the war he had just fought in. Dengler had people who spit on him and called him names. After walking past the hate-filled mob, Dengler was greeted by his loving family who brought him home. They traveled home and he was later greeted by a welcome home party. Later that week, he wanted to wear his uniform one last time to church, but the protests of the war were so bad that they advised against it. After being welcomed back within a week, he was back to resuming his normal life. Dengler continued through his life. He had kids and even now has grandchildren. Dengler ended up helping build or construct a Vietnam memorial. The life of a soldier is not easy, but Sergeant Paul Dengler faithfully served his country that he loves. Because without soldiers like Dengler, America would not be the land of the free and the home of the brave. In conclusion, Paul Dengler led a heroic life, going from a civilian lifestyle to war, through the bombings at Vietnam and the harsh environment, still completing the job of communications, holding scarce information that could have him killed. And through his service, Dengler showed very much bravery and was willing to sacrifice his life for the greater good of the country.